Okay, it's May 22nd, 2021, and Mom and I are sitting in the living room, and we are looking at this very unusual document that is a drawing in blue and red colored pencil that is describing, as you can see across the bottom, a quadruple coronary artery graft. And it's dated March 19th of 1981. This is a very unique and unusual piece of paper. And maybe we could say this much for starters. Your father, William Edward Rice, he had the need for a four-way bypass surgery in 1981, as we can see here, in Salt Lake City, and that's who performed it. It was Dr. Nelson.
Yes. And I don't know how he knew Dr. Nelson, but that's who he wanted.
Mm-hmm. He knew of him. Somehow he knew that that's who he wanted.
Yes.
Now, Grandpa went into this having had a heart attack, didn't he?
Yes.
Okay, so he had an appointed day. So it wasn't the same as somebody going into cardiac arrest and going into the hospital and having emergency surgery. It was a scheduled event.
Yes.
Much so that you had advance notice and you personally were there.
Right. So I knew that he was going to have it done. And it turned out that Dad was going to Woodbadge in St. George at that same time. So he had left for Woodbadge, and so then the day that Grandpa had his surgery, I went down on the bus a day or two in advance, and then went to the hospital with both of them.
With Grandma and Grandpa?
Yeah, let me think just a minute. I think Grandpa went in the night before the surgery. So then we went back to their house, and then Grandma and I got up really early to be up there in the morning when they were going to do the surgery. I don't remember exactly what time it was, but it was real early, and we waited in a big room for him to come out. And we got to see him go down the hall, wheel him down the hall towards the room to do the surgery.
Okay.
And
what hospital was this, by the way?
It was that one that's up on the hill from the temple.
So the University Hospital, probably. It wasn't the LDS hospital.
I don't know. Is that the one that's up on the hill?
Well, I know that Dr. Nelson taught at the university, or he had a group of residents, and so he was in that teaching hospital environment. So he was probably.
But this was up to the north of the temple.
Oh.
And it wasn't that many blocks.
It wasn't.
It was up above the Capitol building and stuff. That's where that was. But that's where it was.
Well, with all those details established, can you talk about the morning of his surgery? So you saw him being wheeled off, and then you and Grandma stayed in the waiting room during the entire surgery.
Yes, and there were a lot of people in there that were there for the same reason. So we had good visits with different people, and they had come from some from Wyoming and some from Idaho, and some from Utah. It was interesting. But Grandma was working on some special crocheting projects. So she had a great big bag and crocheted like crazy every minute she was working with her hands. And I thought maybe I needed a project too, so at one point we went down to the ZCMI to find something that I could work on for a project, and we bought a little thing that I could do some crewel embroidery on. And so she tried to teach me how to do that, or it was some kind of embroidery thing. But it was, anyway, I tried to do that.
So that was nervous energy?
Yes.
For both of you? So it was many hours.
Was many hours, and then after this surgery was all over, then Dr. Nelson came in to talk to us, and he had on his greenies and his little hat and his mask. But every time I see him talk and I see his eyes, I remember those eyes.
So as you waited for several hours, that's who came to give you the news about the surgery was Dr. Nelson.
And it was probably about 5.5 hours. And he had a clipboard in his hand, and he was just so nice to us. And he said the surgery was successful, and so he got out his pencil and drew me a picture, my mother and I, a picture of what he had done. So he drew a heart and a picture of all the little bypasses, and he used a blue pen and a red one both, so we could see exactly what it was.
And here it is. You can see the blockages in the coronary arteries, by the way. He actually drew where the blockages were. And he would have finished the surgery, so he knew in great detail exactly where each of those were. And so this one was coming on both sides of this particular coronary artery. Then this one was clear up at the junction between these. I don't remember the names of all the coronary arteries. I used to. One of them is the circumflex. I think that one goes from the back, but here he is drawing these.
There's actually 3 of them right there then.
Yeah, so there's blockage number 1, there's blockage number 2, there's blockage number 3, and there's blockage number 4. So he says, I did a quadruple coronary artery graft on your father and husband, and then he shows how he took a vein from Grandpa's leg and how he grafted it, creating a bypass and straight into the aorta.
So that's what the red is.
Yeah. And showing that allowed for the oxygenation of the heart muscle and the blood flow that was there.
Isn't that amazing?
Amazing. So he sat down and drew all that out for it, which would have taken quite a few minutes to do.
Yes.
And he explained the procedure and what he did and told you that it went well. Huh?
And then he told us we could go in and see him, but he wouldn't be conscious. But we could still go in and look if we wanted to. And I don't remember if my mother went too, but I remember going in there, and that was something. Oh my word! He didn't look like he was alive. In fact, that's what he told us. He said he warned us that's how it would be, because they actually was always keeping him alive at one point. Would that have been before he did that? Maybe that was before we talked to him. No, it's too long ago to, I guess, to remember that, but I remember how they'd opened up his chest and then put ice in there, a whole bunch of ice. And
he explained that to you?
He must have. Somebody did. But anyway, it was quite an interesting thing to see.
Oh, what an experience.
It was, because they actually didn't have a heart that was beating yet.
So the document itself, can you tell me what happened to this folded piece of paper? Grandma took it, right? And she folded it up and put it in her crochet bag.
Yes, but I didn't think anything more about it until 2 years ago. And Melanie, well, it was right after President Nelson was made the prophet.
Uh-huh.
And so when she remembered that he had done Grandpa's surgery, she asked me what I remembered about it.
Uh-huh.
And so I was telling her how he had taken had the clipboard and how he had drawn a picture. And so Melanie said, well, so where is the picture? And I said, oh, I don't know. I never thought about it again. And then I got to thinking about it and thought, well, Grandma had that bag. I bet she must have just put that in her bag, that picture. And then I thought for a minute longer, and I said, well, Melanie, you have the bag. That's the bag I gave you. Maybe you ought to go look in it and see if it's in. And it was.
Folded up.
Yes. There was a little pocket in there. And she put it in that little pocket.
And she had probably never taken it out since Dr. Nelson had given it to her. And she put it in her crochet bag where she had been madly crocheting it for that whole time.
And it had never been unfolded or anything. And it was so funny that Melanie was the one that was so interested in it.
And she had it.
And there it was in that bag that she had.
Amazing.
And I had given it to her that summer when she came up.
Well, this is an amazing thing to see. It's amazing that Dr. Nelson gave you that type of attention and took the trouble to draw this and to explain what happened. I think it provides some insight into the way that he practiced and the way that he treated people.
Mm-hmm.
I met him on my mission in 1991. We had a mission-wide conference outside of Brisbane, Australia, at a stake center where we always met as a mission, where our transfers took place, and it was called Kangaroo Point. And there was the Kangaroo Point Chapel, and today a temple sits there. And he came there to Kangaroo Point, and when he arrived, we were able, as missionaries, to stand outside of the chapel so that while he and his wife Danzel were coming in, that we each got to shake his hand. And we did have a chance to talk to him a little bit. He didn't hurry as he came through, and so I got to talk to him a little bit. In fact, he looked at my name tag and saw my last name and knew Uncle Harold, and so he asked me if I was related. And so I told him that I was, and then I said that you operated on my grandpa. And he said, well, what's his name? And I said, Eddie Rice. And he said, oh, I remember Eddie Rice. Sister Nelson and I prayed for him many times. How's he doing?
Really?
Yeah. And he remembered Grandpa. And I thanked him. And he assured me that it was his privilege to do that. And then he went on down the line.
Oh, wow.
Met some other missionaries. So a remarkable man, a remarkable story. And of course, we know that he extended Grandpa's life for many, many years.
Yes.
Beyond that.
Because they said it would be 20 years.
Wow. Well, thank you, Mom.
You're welcome.